Hello, everybody, and welcome back. Hey, yeah, I do that every time. You don't have to laugh at me, Anna. It's fine.
I'm not laughing at you. I'm laughing at the thing that you did your vocal exercises to get your voice deeper, and then you started off with this
Like
high-pitched thing
the
that I've
most
never
high-pitched.
heard
Fine.
from you before.
Hello, welcome back,
Hello!
everybody.
That's high pitched?
Yeah.
Hello!
There you
Welcome
go.
back,
Why don't you
everybody.
just say hello
Hello. No, I gotta.
from chest?
it's
it has
energy.
To come from chest.
I don't want to. Hello.
Yes, like Japanese talk.
Okay, I'm gonna sit.
I don't like how that
I don't-
sounded through the microphone.
This is great content, guys. This is great
Yeah.
content. I'm here with both of my guests from both previous episodes. We're here. I'm very excited for both of you to be on because I don't know. I feel like you guys are so different. You know, I can't wait. You said you wanted to tackle morality or something.
Yeah.
So what do you have in
I
mind?
don't know. I was just like looking at my phone and I was like, let's figure out what moral questions are there. And then I found, is it ever okay to lie? If so, under what circumstances?
I think it's always good to lie a little bit, just not to
Really?
lose the practice.
What do you mean?
A little bit about everything.
No, I think like you have to at least once a day like practice lying so that you can remember, how that feels and so that you can mask it next time.
Oh,
Whoa!
damn!
That is interesting.
Wow.
No, because you know how some people are like, oh, I'm a terrible liar.
It's like, we need to get better.
Suck at it, practice.
I mean, I wouldn't say I'm a terrible liar, but under like pertinent circumstances, I can lie. I just don't like to.
yeah, I don't lie.
This is interesting to me. Isn't it it's normal to, doesn't everyone say it's like never lie, like don't lie, like
Yeah,
sometimes
but
you have to
what
tell
about
a white
lies.
Okay, white lies. Who's okay?
You know,
Mhm.
actually, I just
It's
remembered
not a
something.
racist thing. It's just
No. What were you gonna say?
There was this guy who
Uh-huh.
like said he was what's it called? Pathological liar.
Yeah.
But okay,
Yeah.
so what happened was he was in one of my classes and I didn't go to one of the meetings that I was supposed to before.
Okay.
And I guess part of it was telling a story, and in that he said that he was a pathological liar. But I assumed that it was because he just made up a really good story. And so like the next time people were like giving him shit for being a pathological liar, and I was like, "Oh, but you just made up a story." He's like, "No, I'm legitimately a pathological liar." And I was like, "What exactly does that mean?"
What does that mean?
Yeah.
Are you asking us, or did you
I don't
figure it
know.
out?
I just thought it was
well, it
like
means that you can't help yourself but lie, right?
really.
So like
Yeah, like in any situation, even if you don't have to lie, you just lie.
yeah, it's like Trump, right? Like he knows that there is evidence of him saying A on camera, but he
Right.
can't help himself and be like, no.
Yeah, I feel like Trump is one of those minds where there's like so little super ego and like just so much id that it's like hard to. And when I say super ego and id, it's like super ego is like the front level consciousness,
Right.
Like that's the voice that we hear in our head. And then id is like the primal sort of
Right,
thing.
right,
And then
right.
there's regular ego, which is like
Yeah.
kind of in between, I think. I feel like Trump is just one of those cases where it's like this is just like a fucking guy. It's like if you got like a machine learning algorithm
Mhm.
and it's like if input A do output A, and it's like he's receiving so much input A and just doing output A that he never sees like the complex society that is what we live in. And it's like, well, I can't do output A because of this and that. Like he breezed through his life because he just had money, and like he's just doing whatever.
But I
lying.
brought him up because he's an example of a person who legitimately lies all the time, even when it's not necessary.
Right.
And I
Yeah.
don't think it is always beneficial to him, right? Like, I think each one of us would lie if we saw any benefit to it. So that's why I basically don't
Practice
lie,
lying.
because
Oh.
I used to lie all the fucking time.
Really?
All the time.
For
Because I
what?
thought I was going to get in trouble, right? Like I would lose my mom's shawl, and then she'd be like, "Where's my shawl?" And I'd be like, "Oh, the guy on the bus, he grabbed it and took it," and crap like that, right? And then I would not get in trouble, and then I would forget about it, and then like 2 weeks later, she'd be like, "Hey, what did the guy that stole my shawl look like?" And I'd be like, "Huh?" Because I couldn't remember what I
Right.
said, and so. Since I learned, like, it's better to just not lie because you get in so much more trouble when you get caught.
When you get caught. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I asked earlier what You never like both of you guys heard that growing up, right? Like, don't lie, you know, like that's just like a thing.
Yeah.
Don't lie?
I mean,
I lie sometimes. No, do I? I don't know.
I think I just
haven't really
sometimes don't
reflected
say
on that.
everything. Or like when
Withholding the
something makes
truth.
me upset,
Mm-hmm.
I don't necessarily say that. Or when something made me happy and I want to piss off the other person, I don't,
I think lying is more intentional though. Like those kind of things, like withholding truth, is different
I
from
do
like
it on purpose.
being intentional. Like when somebody asks you, like
Uh-huh.
I don't know, I'm trying to think of a case where you would lie.
You lie, like not a white lie or
Like-
a white lie.
Like if like the police were asking you, where were you Saturday
Yeah,
at so and so time, and you intentionally lie.
yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah. Nice, Alex.
I'm
I
sorry.
I didn't even hear that. I just barely heard it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Nice.
so I think to me it's like, okay, well, where were you yesterday? And then you were at 50 places and you only list 3. You're like, I don't want to have to explain to you why I went to Pink Poodle, so I'm just going to say I went to San Jose.
Uh huh.
I'm not lying, but I'm also not telling the truth.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So that's like a white lie, but I feel like in the context of a cop,
Right.
it's
The white lie, I think white lie is when somebody dies and you tell your kids that they went to sleep.
Well,
to me, a white lie is if somebody said like, "Oh, why'd you put this over here?" and the real reason is like a
you don't wanna
10-minute
really,
story.
Yeah,
and I'm like,
exactly.
"Oh,
that's
I,"
a white lie.
and I say like, "Oh, like, you know, like I tripped and I just like I put it there, I forgot it." You know, like I don't know what. I have no example in the back of my mind that I'm trying to abstract here.
Yeah, so you just come out with a little white lie.
So I feel like
That's-
the
to me,
dying
that's a
thing
white
is
lie.
the same thing, but a little bit more complex.
No,
right?
I don't know.
I don't
No,
know.
dude, like somebody dies and you tell
Kids-
your kids that they fell asleep and they're never going to wake up. Like, that's basically the
Nah,
same
my
thing.
parents
because
were
It's
straightforward.
kind of, yeah, it is kind
I'm
of.
I was
the
trying
like
same.
to do
5 years
that.
old, and my parents were like, "So your grandpa passed away," and I was like, "I don't know what that means, but all right."
Well, let's now that we're at
right,
death.
but the thing is that
Again, we're always coming back to death.
I
I mean,
I was excited also for both of you to be on because you guys have very different backgrounds in how death is approached.
Do we?
I think we do.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, my family is not religious.
Oh, okay.
So, but like it's kind of weird because my grandparents are both part of the Czech Husit, whatever, it's a Protestant church in Czech, but they were not allowed to go to church for a long time because we had a communist rule and
Right.
people going to church were persecuted. So we never really
Jeez.
talked about religion at home.
Uh-huh.
Nobody ever told me to pray or taught me how to.
Mhm.
You know, never like. In my family, in school, that was part of the curriculum. Like, there are people who are religious. This is what they do.
Uh-huh.
This is what they believe when they are this religion, that religion.
Right.
Other
You're taught about religion. You're
Read
not
this
practicing.
book.
Yeah.
This is what
Yeah.
Yeah.
the book of
You guys
the
read the
religion
Quran
is.
and the Bible like the
We
things they
did.
carried.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, and so for me it's just like, yeah, this exists, people believe in it, and then as a sociologist I understand the deeper meaning of religion in society and why it's important.
Right.
I find all the things that religion bring to people in other places, in other institutions,
Mhm.
right? And so in my family, talking about like going to church or anything, it's not happening.
It's not a thing. Yeah.
Right? Like what we do on Sunday, well, we clean up the country house. Other people go to church and clean up their soul, right? Like,
Right.
that's different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I don't think that I have the. I was telling my friend one time, he was telling me how terrible it is to be a religious person because he feels like people don't understand him. They don't understand like the rituals that he goes through and
Mhm.
everything.
So sorry, I want to clarify. What it's like to be a religious person when you're surrounded by atheist people, or
when you're surrounded by just people who don't
understand.
Understand the
religion,
religion.
right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
and so, and to
In
me
that
it's just like, well, but you are never going to lose that. It's impossible for me to gain growing up Catholic or gain growing up Muslim,
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
but you have it and you can use it, but you will never lose it. You're always going to have that experience. You're always going to know what it's
Mhm.
like to be a kid and practice these rituals. I will
Mm.
never know that.
What's the contrast there? Like, if you subtract those two, what's the output? Like,
We were talking about how people who are raised strictly religious
Uh-huh.
are kind of usually end up not practicing the religion or being agnostic or atheist,
Mm-hmm.
and why it is. And I had some points, and he's like, that's not how that was though. That's not what I experienced as a person who actually grew up doing that. And then I realized, like, I will never know, because these are my rational
Oh.
objects of like, this is
okay.
why I would become
Yeah.
atheist or agnostic if I had to go through this. But the meaning of what I see is totally different for the person who has to practice that.
You had one
Right.
of those moments where it's like, oh, this is just something I won't get.
Yeah, I will never get that.
Yeah.
You're the
Mhm.
insider, and you always are going to have the opportunity to be in this group, and I will never be able to do that.
It's like,
I mean,
yeah.
unless you actually convert to religion.
I don't think so, because this is the part of the conversation is what it's like growing up
Mhm.
in a strict religious environment. And
Right.
I'm a grown-ass woman. I will never ever have that back, right? Like,
Right.
but at the same time, people who grew up strictly religious will never know what it's like to not grow up like that. The
Right.
grass is always greener, kind of
But
thing.
I feel like
Sure.
alternatively, you could also then figure out what it's like to not be religious when you do grow up. So then you kind of have a little bit of balance of both.
Well, I think that you can just never unlive something.
Yeah, that's true.
Like it's the way when we grow up, it's it forms our perspective on
Mhm.
the whole world, and like those perspectives are deeper than things we can explain. That's why we have like psychology professors, right? That's
Mhm.
why we have all these theories, because like if we could just perfectly explain how things affected us, we wouldn't need any of that, because we could just say it.
Right.
So like growing up religious can affect someone in ways that might be undescribable to someone, where
Right.
it's like, oh, like you're religious now, like you, like I can explain it to you in this way and now you get it. It's like, no, there's like deeper stuff that like someone can feel and not fully understand.
I think the biggest the biggest theme there is that you're in with this group and you communicate differently than you communicate with the out group, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Like a stupid example of, we all know SCS and how it works. Like, that's the place where we work.
Right.
Mhm.
We use certain words and we have certain situations that we've been in together,
Right.
so that we don't need to describe those situations in depth. We just like kind
Yeah.
of look at each other and we know. And I feel like that's with any group, right? There's these kids who grew up religious have their own
Yeah.
thing that they refer to and they understand, whereas I will never understand.
That's true.
And it's not like a jealous I will never understand, but it
Yeah.
just reminds you of like how different we are.
Yeah, I
Mhm.
think what might make it clearer too is I remember, I think it's times that I've talked with you, and like even back in high school before I knew any of you guys, where somebody, I have two examples. One of them is I'll start with you, where it's like you get catcalled like on a like weekly, daily basis almost, and like I remember hearing that at high school too, where it's like I'd be like hearing that, and it's like, yeah, like these like 80-year-old dude try to hit on me at this place, and I'm like, it's like I personally never see that, right? Like I've never seen that happen to someone else, but I believe these people, so I'm like, well, like I'm just never gonna have that happen. I remember I was watching Trevor Noah one time,
Uh-huh.
and he's like, I've been pulled over 8 times since I've been in America for like 2 years, and like they've both just been like, just checking, right? Like they're just pulling over a black guy in a car.
Mhm.
And I'm like of course I never see that, because all I'm gonna see is like a cop car on the side of a highway, like probably the other car was speeding is what I
Right.
would assume, but like I'm never gonna personally experience any of that, and that's because I'm not black and I'm not a woman,
Right.
and like I'm just never gonna fully understand it. But you know, I gotta believe that, you know.
Right. But then there's just things that you're going to experience that neither of us are going
And
to
neither of you
understand.
guys are gonna understand.
Yeah.
Which is, I want to tie this back to death so bad. How you, how did your parents explain
So
Death.
when I
Death.
was little, I think I was like 4 years old, my
Uh-huh.
great grandma passed away. She
Okay.
died, and everybody went to the funeral, and I and my grandpa stayed at home, and I didn't know why.
your grandma passed away and your grandpa
My
stayed at home?
great grandmother.
Your great grandma.
My,
Was it-
my grandma's mom.
Your grandma's
And my
mom.
grandpa and I stayed at their house, and everybody else went to the funeral. But I had no idea that that's what was happening, right?
Hmm.
And then they
You were
came
4, you said?
back. Yeah, and then
Hmm.
people were kind of sad or whatever. But it's just like, my family was always very like there was always some kind of emotion going on, so it wasn't like off. You know what
Mhm.
I mean? Like we were either like super happy or pissed at each other. Or like it's just this huge mix of emotions
Seasons of,
always. So it's not
emotions.
like traumatizing to me. Like, but I
Right.
just didn't understand where everybody went. That like was with me for a long time.
Mhm.
And then later on, I didn't see my great grandmother a lot. She had diabetes and she was
Mhm.
doing insulin shots, and so I just didn't. They kept me kind of away from her.
Huh.
She was tired
Interesting.
and sick, and it was difficult. Somebody had to take care of her. Like a kid in this mix was not a good thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I asked about her one time, and they just told me she died. Remember that one time you stayed there with Grandpa? She died. She's dead.
Yeah.
And
And then
yeah.
like I think that there was this like sleeping and not waking up, and I was just like, I don't know what. Well, so when I go to sleep, I never wake up, and they're like, not exactly okay.
Yeah, well, so when they said she died, did they explain it any further?
No, but the parents always try to get away with not explaining shit. So unless you ask, you will not know, right?
Right. So you asked what happened, and they said she died.
And then
You were like, you didn't ask, like, what does that mean?
yeah, well, I think I didn't necessarily know
What?
that death is a concept I don't know, because
Mm,
that's something that you hear people talk about,
yeah.
and then you kind of like, it's like a foreign language, right? Like if we all talk English, but the two of you keep using a word that I don't know, eventually I'm going to just accept it as a word that exists.
That's what kids have to do with literally everything.
Yes. And so
That's how-
death was
yeah.
like that, right? Like death is this thing that exists.
It's
I
like
know
in
that.
science class
I
when they
know
say
that. but then eventually there was this trying of like what then, like where is she
Mhm.
sleeping? Can I see her? Oh, she's in this grave here.
Where's she want to go see her? It's the tombstone right over there. Fuck.
And then we would like bring flowers there and
Mhm.
everything, and I was like, oh, she's in this ground here.
Mhm.
Obviously, duh.
I knew that.
I knew that.
Uh-huh.
And then I was like, well, what? She's just like in the dirt. And then finally I understood that like people are putting coffins and then they're putting ground.
Uh-huh.
But then I found out that some people can be cremated, and I was just like outraged, like what? Like campfire with people?
Campfire, but instead of wood, it's people.
Yeah, no. So it was like this weird like cynical kind of like.
Perspective.
And my family loved great grandma. Like
Mhm.
there's nothing not loving about all this, but it
Mhm.
was just this like, we have this little shithead here who doesn't know what happened, and we
Uh-huh.
don't know how to deal with it. And because we were not religious, there was no talk of souls and heaven and all these things. Like they just didn't know what to do at all.
Interesting.
Yeah. How does that compare with you?
Mine?
Yeah.
I mean, well, like I was
Uh-huh.
saying, the first time I found out about death was when my grandpa passed away. So it was like, I think, I forgot what happened, but like my parents sat us down and they were like, oh yeah, so your grandpa died, like this morning or whatever.
Mhm.
And like I didn't really know, but my older sister was like really close to him, like she like a
Mhm.
second dad, and she was like extremely upset. And then she like ran to her room, and my sister Karen and I were like just sitting there like, all right. And then it got like really really silent to the point
How old
where
were you?
5.
Okay.
I was just about to turn 6, I think, and this is the bad part. But I started laughing because like it was really really quiet, like awkward quiet.
Oh,
and so I was
you're
just
just
like
awkward laugh.
yeah. And that's kind of how I got introduced to death. But it wasn't, I don't know. I don't really remember it that much. And
Mhm.
it wasn't like that big of a deal to me just because I was like 5.
Uh-huh.
And I mean, like I knew my grandpa, but like I wasn't like close.
Uh-huh.
Like, and I was still too young to like understand what was going on. So yeah. But I don't know. What do you mean?
Like, at what point? You mentioned earlier, especially in the last episode,
Right.
how with your grandma and the doctor asked your grandma, it's like, do you think you're gonna see your husband again?
Oh no. It wasn't a doctor.
Or
Yeah.
sorry, but like, at what point was that? Did you understand that idea?
I think that kind of started after my abuelita passed away, which you know the difference now, right? Like my abuelita
On your
is from my mom's side,
yeah.
my grandma's from my dad's side, and she's still alive. Yeah, I'm trying to think. It kind of. I mean, I didn't really have any idea what kind of happened. I always thought like when you die, you die, and then like
You had a concept of like nothingness.
Yeah, I used to not think that anything really happened until I started having like dreams where like my grandparents would like come visit and talk to me, and that's when I was like, oh, I guess they're still kind of around.
At what point you had these dreams?
It was after she passed away. It was like maybe a year or so after, and then I started having like
How old
dreams.
were you then?
Maybe like 17, I think.
Oh.
And then after that, like, I started talking with my dad more, and then that's how I started, like, exploring, like,
What they
spiritual
thought
stuff.
about
right,
that.
Right, and then it wasn't until, like, maybe sophomore? No, my second year in college
Well,
that I started having, like, like, I started hearing people when I fell asleep. I started having, like, the crazy dreams that I was
gotcha.
like, whoa, this is insane.
What's happening?
Right,
Yeah.
yeah. So that's when I started to look into it
I didn't
more.
know you were that old when that happened. When
I was 14 when she died.
she died. Okay,
Yeah.
you're 14 when she died,
Yes.
and that's when you started. So before that, well, I mean, it's truly hard to say anyone has a concept of nothingness.
Right.
But before that, you were just like, oh, people died. So
I didn't really have any, like, stance. Just
Mhm.
because, like...
You just didn't think about it?
No. Like, so I'm trying to think of, like, in terms of, like, how I grew up with religion. And before... Like, my abuelita was probably the most religious person. Like,
Yeah.
my mom's side of the family, they grew up very religious. Like, they lived in a small town. And, like, religion was integrated into it. Like, it wasn't... There was no separation between, like, religion and anything else.
Gotcha.
And so my mom's side was very religious. My mom was religious. My dad not so much. Like I said, my grandma and my dad and my grandpa were more like spiritual.
Mm-hmm.
So my dad didn't really have a preference on how he wanted like my sisters and I to grow up. And so my mom had us baptized. I did my first communion, and then I'm Catholic.
That's fine.
Yeah, I should
I'm
probably
sorry,
mention that.
I'm Catholic.
Or I grew up Catholic. I don't really
Mhm.
practice now, but so then I had my first communion, which I was like maybe 8, I think, and then after that, you're supposed to have like confirmation, which at your
Uh-huh.
confirmation is like you reaffirm your beliefs.
Like, I am really Catholic.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, you know, when some parents like to give their kids a choice
Mhm.
into like whether or not they want to continue. It's kind of like that. But I never did it just because I didn't have like a quinceañera, which is like traditional where you have to have your confirmation in order to actually like have the church aspect of it.
Of a quinceañera?
Oh,
Ah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So both my sisters had one. So they did their confirmation, but I still haven't.
So you can still have your quinceañera?
if I wanted to, yeah.
Let's do it.
Yas queen slay.
I'ma dress up.
So, I'm trying to think. I didn't have a quinceañera because it was like the same year that my abuelita passed away. So it was kind of like,
it was a hard-
I
yeah.
don't think this is a good idea.
Yeah, it's
Um,
like, hey guys, you think this can be about me for a little bit now?
Yeah, and I just didn't really like having like a lot of people stare at me. It's weird. I don't like being the center of attention most of the
You
time.
know what's interesting though?
Hmm.
Like I know quinceañera is a thing.
Uh-huh.
I know it's for like girls and
Mhm.
whatever, but I have no idea what you do during the celebration. Like I know it's a big thing.
Oh,
You dress
I
up
can
in your
explain
wedding
it.
dress and
Yeah.
everything.
It's
But then like what happens beyond that? There's eating and it's like
It's a party, so it's like a coming of age party. I know some different cultures have ones. I think they have one in like the Philippines.
Sweet 16?
Yeah, Sweet 16 that isn't really comparable because it's just one big
so
party.
You missed out on a Cadillac.
Yeah,
Oh
pretty
my
much.
God.
I mean, I think Sweet 16. I mean, it's a lot different.
You know, talk
just
about
because-
quinceañera, please. Don't talk
Yeah,
about Sweet 16.
yeah.
Please
So,
don't.
quinceañera is you have to like. It's like your transition into being a woman, and so.
But what happens during, like, the day of, like, you get dressed, I suppose, and
Yeah.
you go to, what, you go to church first?
Yeah.
Or is it always on a
Oh my
Sunday?
God, there's so much. So there's like you have to plan like at least a year in advance.
Jesus.
'Cause it's literally like a wedding almost, except without a groom. And
I love it. Can I please have it?
So basically, for my sisters, you
yeah, I
have
would
to
feel
get
like
like
an ass.
the dress. You have to get a tiara. You have to get your hair done, your makeup, nails, the whole shebang. You have to. There's sometimes people have like chambelanes, which are like guys. Like at least like you have like a court.
Yeah, you have the
Yeah.
bridesmaids
Keep
and
talking.
the
Yeah.
groomsmen.
And sometimes you can have girls, sometimes you don't. Or
Mhm.
which are called like damas, and so that's a thing.
I
And
remember
then
this.
you have like godparents who like kind of either buy or bless whatever object it is that they want to choose. It can be like a necklace, a Bible, a rosary, etc.
Are they gonna hand this to you at some point
at
in the
the church
ceremony?
ceremony.
Okay.
I didn't really go through it, so I don't really remember. But I do know that like there's a church ceremony.
That's the first thing that happens.
Yes.
Yeah. One of my cousins passed out. Like she had like only orange juice that morning.
Stop.
And she was like in the chair, and the priest is doing the thing, and everybody's like in the altars and like watching, and then she just like leans forward in her chair and just fucking she just falls over, and everyone's like, oh shit, like pick her up. And so like the priest I remember seeing the priest. It was super grainy video, but the priest just was like, oh like he just totally was like
Like what the
like,
fuck do I do?
this I killed her. Like,
I killed her with the word of Jesus.
she was a demon chat. No, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
We are so ignorant,
so
Alex.
funny. Okay.
It's fun though. I'm
So
learning.
there's also like a video of the event. Sometimes I mean like I don't think my sisters had a video, but
You mean
like,
somebody records the event?
yeah,
I mean,
and
I
so
think that'll
like
just
there's
happen.
like this whole process of like her putting on her dress and like video footage of like the
Oh.
spread of like her book or whatever
The
fuck
thing
it's
they
called.
give her.
Yeah, there's like a doll. There's a doll that looks exactly like you. I'm not
American Girl.
It literally, it's like an American Girl doll except with a quinceañera dress on. Yeah.
Is that?
So,
I don't know about that one.
yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, we got rid of it because it was too creepy. But
They
there's
tried to burn it, but it came back in 2015, and I don't know how.
there's also like there's just so many little
Is her
details.
name Annabelle?
Annabelle? No.
Anna, the movie.
Oh, I thought you said Annabelle. I was like, what? Okay, anyway.
Yeah.
And then there's a ceremony, the church ceremony, and then you
Mhm.
leave. And then you have like an hour or two to take pictures. And sometimes there's a limo, sometimes there's not. Depends
Oh,
on
that's
the
what
family.
I always see at the Rose Garden.
Yeah,
That part.
yeah,
And they come
that-
with the limo
exactly.
and then they take pictures and then you're like,
Yep.
oh, wedding.
No, that's a
Creepy.
quinceañera. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
so
the kids.
And
Yeah.
so then there's like the party and like there's like a dance.
There's a dance.
There's like 3 different dances. One of them is like
With the. I don't want to. Well, since you're at a pause, as you were telling this explanation, I started to remember. It was a chambelán, right?
you were
I was a chambelán for my
Really?
cousin's quinceañera.
fun.
I'm remembering it now. Like we went to her like where she lived, and like she invited her friends, and then like
Mhm.
it was me and my brother,
Yeah.
because it was my older. Well, okay, I have a bunch of cousins, but
Same.
it was these 2 cousins that were basically me and my brother's age, and in both sides of my family, only me and my brother, and then
Mhm.
those 2 cousins are the only people the same age, like around the same age as us. Other than that, everyone on both sides of my family is either like kids or like adults.
Yeah.
So like it's just like just on my dad's side of the family is these 2 cousins that are like basically me and my brother's age, and so like we
Uh-huh.
were really close, and so like it was pretty much all of like her guy friends and her
Right.
girlfriends, and then like me and my brother, because like we
Right.
were close with her. And so like I remember we practiced dancing, and like we were coming up with dance moves, right, and like
Yeah.
a thing, and so yeah, I remember the dance too. It's like they have the thing, the godparents give them a thing, and then
Mhm.
they dance with each. Well, I don't think they dance with each godparent. I think they dance.
with the parents.
they- they dance with their parents too.
Mhm.
And the parents say nice things.
Yeah.
And then then other people, someone else could say nice things, and there's a
Mhm.
toast. Oh yeah, the limo. I remember
Yeah.
that in San Diego. We went to like Balboa Park, which is like a super famous park.
Uh-huh.
And I remember, like, we're all dressed up, right? And it's like, she's like dressed like a thing, except there's like no groom, and we're just there. And I remember someone cracking a joke, and it's like, man, this looks like a child wedding. This is
Yeah.
ridiculous.
No, literally, it does.
Yeah.
And then you're a woman.
Yeah.
I mean, congratulations,
Yeah.
and now you're not.
And you're not a woman. You didn't do it.
Yeah.
But this is fun talking about like us or you remembering, and then me like not knowing exactly what's going
Yeah.
on. But like, what do you guys think like is the importance of traditions in our lives?
I think it's super. Okay. I remember having this conversation like junior year of high school with somebody, and like we totally understood it. I'm gonna try to remember it. It was, I love tradition. I feel like it makes us feel closer, not just to ourselves,
To our families.
or like it makes us feel closer to our families, but it also makes us feel closer to
your-
literally everything, like
Yeah,
to
to your
nature,
identity.
yes, but not just that, like to society, to
Yeah.
anything, to a group and everything beyond your group, and
Community.
you know. But then at the same time, I hate it when people like that's against tradition. You know, I love tradition.
So you think tradition should be fluid?
I don't
Well,
know.
that's weird because then it wouldn't be tradition. It'd just be like a thing. It'd be like fads.
I see what you're saying, but
Yeah.
I think like, okay, so this is the way that my family celebrates birthdays, right?
Mhm.
Go ahead.
Like we invite family and nobody else because that's just how we are.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And then there's a cake, and we sit around and drink coffee and talk, and then there's probably a football game or something. Soccer.
Your family plays a soccer game?
No, we watch it on
Oh.
television.
Oh.
Damn,
And
I was
then
about to
it's
be like,
like
that's
it's
cool.
not anything particularly enjoyable for anyone involved, right? And so like, but changing it up for me would mean like, but then it wouldn't be a family thing.
I think what do you mean, like family tradition or cultural tradition?
I
'Cause
think
that's
both
different.
are kind of the same, right?
Really?
Yeah, I think both are the same because with my example of these birthdays, it's like now my family fixed up the country house that we have,
Oh.
and then the birthdays moved there, and then
Yeah.
they have completely different dynamic because country house means shitload of work.
Right.
So you sit around the table, you eat some fruit and cake, and you have coffee, and then you go and mow the lawn, and you go and take down a tree. Right, so it's completely different, but it is still the same tradition of only family comes here and we have these things.
Because I feel like,
So I think that every tradition has some kind of bones,
right, but they vary.
and then everything around it can be fluid.
Right.
Okay.
I understand that. I think because like cultural tradition versus like family tradition, it's like, because at least with my family, there's like there's like specific ways of like Mexican traditions, and then like we have our own little personal. So I think that's what you mean by fluid. Like fluid is more of like the family traditions versus like probably the more generalized one is like cultural traditions.
Right, but when you say Mexican tradition, like Mexico's a big ass
Right,
country
right.
that is
Yeah.
super diverse,
Right.
right? So when I always see that as an example of like I am Czech, but I'm from this particular region in the Czech
Czech,
Republic,
right.
and this is what we do there.
Yeah.
When I move out of the Czech Republic, that gets lost. Now
Yeah.
I'm just Czech, and I have to come up with what that means in terms of traditions.
Right.
So like,
I mean, I know what you mean. Like, because at least in Mexico, like the way that you make certain foods can vary. The way that you celebrate certain traditions can vary. But like, there's still like that overarching like main component.
You make a food.
right?
Right. So
Yeah.
it's like
Yeah.
how you make tamales or how you make
Yeah.
there's like specific ways of making like Michoacan versus like Jalisquense. Or, like how do you say it?
Sure.
Right. So
yes.
it's like complete. They're different regions, but they both have the same cultural
Right.
foods.
That's what I think that is important. Like
Right.
that's important. Like my
Yeah.
neighbor is from El Salvador, right? He loves
Cool.
Salvadorian tamales. He can't get them. On Dia del Cruz, he's going to have tamales, right? Like it's not going to be the particular tamale. Nobody's going to be saying that that's going against tradition. But everybody who is from El Salvador here is going to be like, yes, great, we can celebrate the Salvadorian thing here.
Yeah.
So when people say like, well, it's not exactly Mexican, it's not exactly how it's supposed to be.
I mean,
That was a flippant gesture she made.
yeah.
Um,
I know what you're saying. Like Chipotle isn't exactly Mexican food.
Taco Bell is a disgrace.
Yeah. That I can understand. But yeah, there's certain
Mhm.
people who are like, it's against tradition. And it's like, okay, well, fuck off.
Okay, but would you agree that if there was a tradition when you're going to have burritos and nobody can make them, the only option is to get them from Chipotle, would you rather not have them?
I'd rather not have them.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, to me it's different because I cannot get almost
But see,
anything that I need.
Yeah,
here.
that's the thing. Like between like my family and like most of my other mom's side of the family is that a lot of the times like we don't really follow tradition. I mean, my dad's white, so like we kind of don't do it just
Right.
because like he never grew up that way, and so like
Mhm.
he doesn't really understand it. So we have to kind of like create that boundary. So in that sense, I kind of grew up with like a more independent mindset
Mhm.
where it's like if I don't want to, I'm not going to.
Right, but I think that
Like if
not
you were
wanting
in
to celebrate something is a different thing than wanting to celebrate it and not having the proper tools.
like
Yeah,
let's say you
no,
were in
that's true,
Iceland
that's
for
true.
summer and then like a thing gets together where you guys like normally make burritos and there's not even people don't even haven't even heard of flour.
No.
Right,
I
like,
do.
but
I
there
do
was a
understand
Chipotle.
that. I do.
Would you
understand.
get a Chipotle burrito if y'all had to eat burritos for this event? Or not had to, but like y'all normally eat burritos and it's like we can't even get like ground beef, but there's a Chipotle.
I would just start my own tradition.
No, let's say you're there for the summer, right? Like you're just
I
there.
don't know, like, but that's the thing. Like, it doesn't bother me if I go off track.
So you wouldn't get burritos from Chipotle or would you?
No.
No, you
No.
wouldn't. Okay, that's fine.
Like,
I feel like
but
my-
that's what
yeah.
I'm saying. Like, it doesn't inherently like, stop me from like celebrating that tradition because I have a
You would
memory
want to
of
do
that.
something else. Yeah, I'm not.
Right.
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
You know, I
Yeah, I get it now. So I think I meant more like if the only tradition was eating this particular thing and there was nothing else around it,
Oh.
you know, like would you get a substitute?
Are you talking about like because I know there's specific sometimes in some religious cultures like there's only certain things you can eat.
Right, for Christmas we eat fish and potato salad and it's usually a carp because that's what we have, right?
Right.
Interesting.
But here it's like, oh, you eat koi fish, you monster. So I eat cod. Right? Like, it's not
Uh-huh.
the
What's
same.
koi fish? Oh, the little.
Yeah.
Those are so
The little,
cute.
the pretty things.
I mean,
Yeah.
I don't. Me personally, I don't see anything against it. I know a lot of people are like that's inhumane, but the thing is like that's how you grew up. You can't
Right,
really.
no, but like I can't always get the same. Absolutely hate like.
oh, you mean you can't
catfish.
get
So
koi
I just
fish
get a
here.
different fish, right?
Right.
Mhm.
And then to me it's just like perfectly the same.
Right.
You have the bone of fish.
I need the
Yeah.
scale.
You need the scales.
Yeah, you put the scale under the plate, and then it brings you money and good luck for the whole year because you put it in your wallet.
Oh.
Obviously.
Whoa. Okay. That's cool.
Yeah, but those are things that are very difficult to do
Yeah,
here,
right,
right?
'cause
Because
you
when
can't-
you buy fish, it usually doesn't have scales.
Okay, that's that's different than Chipotle.
Yeah.
But that's what I had in mind. You
Right.
know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
you have this tradition, and this is what you do on this day, and then you don't have
You have to.
the proper tools
Right.
to do it, but you still want to celebrate your tradition. Like
Yeah.
I have kids, right? So I want to teach them that this is a thing, so that when they go to check, they don't look at people weird.
Right. Yeah, I think that's kind of where you bridge the gap because you can't necessarily. I mean, it sucks that you're not able to do like, you know, by the book tradition, but like, I don't know. I try to have like a more positive mindset. I'm like, well, if I can't do this, we might as well at least do something. Do what I
Yeah.
can to like kind of reinforce that tradition.
Yeah. I
I
think
wouldn't
it's
mind not celebrating Christmas one year, but I would have to know that that's like an exception.
Oh.
You
You
mean
know
that
what I
everyone
mean?
would be okay with that exception? What do you mean by exception?
No, like if I don't know, if we went to Hawaii and there was just no Christmas trees and it's like I couldn't eat any fish, like I would be like fine skipping Christmas one time.
Okay,
But
well,
I
see,
would have
that's
to
where-
know like
Uh-huh.
I don't know. If I
one
can do
time.
that.
And
You don't know
that's
if you
it.
could skip Christmas?
No, not
But
not
Christmas for
Christmas,
me-
but like the environment. Cause I don't know why, but me specifically, I get very like
Claustrophobic.
no like if an environment doesn't feel right for me, it throws me off.
So you like So if there was a plan, it's like, hey, we can be in Hawaii for half a year, but it's also during the winter when Christmas would happen. You'd be like, nah.
Like New Zealand, they have hot weather during Christmas. I
Okay,
couldn't
yeah.
do that. It would
you have
throw
hot
me.
weather during Christmas.
I mean,
here
no, but like
too.
it's like summer during
Yeah.
in New Zealand during that time. That would throw me off. versus like if I grew up that way, that would be fine. But like
Yeah.
if I was just like, hey, for Christmas we're going to New Zealand, I'd be like, no.
I would totally go.
I want to go to New Zealand. Yeah, it'd be
New
great.
Zealand's great.
But yeah, I'm just very particular about certain things, like I mentioned last time. But what
yeah.
were we talking about?
Tradition.
No, my quinceañera.
I think it ended.
No.
No, you had something more.
I was talking about the quinceañera, but it had nothing to do with what we were talking about before.
Oh, what were we talking about before the quinceañera?
Death.
Yes. My abuelita. Right? Because you were asking me about what my perspective was on...
On, yeah, how you grew up. Jesus, is that a
Religion.
rabbit hole?
Yeah, that
Dug
was
out
a
half
rabbit
this fucking
hole.
planet with that rabbit hole.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
What you
Um,
were asking me to compare something.
Well, what Yana said about how she grew up with
No
No.
religion.
no
No.
religion and how you
It
grew
was
up.
death.
Right,
We were
it was-
comparing death.
Well, right. How her in her background from an atheist religion, not a religion, but blah blah blah. How her family approached her about death. I guess I misunderstood that. I thought you, ever since you were a kid, were kind of raised around the notion of like this whole spiritual thing that like you've brought to me a lot when you talk about death. Like I thought that was a thing you grew up with. But as you said, you only had that since you were like
Right.
17,
Right.
which is
But I don't know how we got on the topic of quinceañeras.
I don't think it's important how we got there. I'm just glad that now I understand that I'm not a woman.
it's a coming of age ceremony.
Also,
it's
I'm still young.
It's a ceremony. It's not
no,
a.
we have a not similar thing.
Uh-huh.
We have this thing that when you are, I think it's when you are 16, you go to this dance school and you learn how to do ballroom dancing, and it's usually something that people do with their class. So we have about 30 people in the class, in each class, and we don't have like I go to math with you and I go to English with you. We are just all do everything together. That's how our school system works, right? So for 8 years, my class was just the same people all the time in every class. And so when you're 16, you go to this dance school together
with your class.
And there's other classes from other schools that are the same age.
When
and
everyone's
usually-
16,
And
almost.
usually you kind of know each other because
You've
there
been.
are other things that are kind of going on, like competitions between schools and things.
Okay.
And then they teach you how to do polka and waltz and all kinds of crap. And then you have to wear pretty dresses. And then the peak of this whole thing is something that's called the wreath. And then you are supposed to wear white dress as a girl because you're a virgin, obviously. And then you go with the boy and you like dance together, and that's when you're a woman after that.
Almost like a debutante sort of thing.
I guess, yeah.
Where
What's
you
a
kind of
debutante?
It's like a dance thing where you're presented to
This
society.
is a woman and she is available kind
Right.
of thing.
like a debutante ball.
God, man, with the whole.
Women have to go through all kinds of shit,
It's all
Alex.
kinds of shit, but also at the same time, I remember as a kid when like I was coming around 15 or 16, I was like, man, how come only the Jewish people celebrate the boys coming of age? I just gotta be here and watch all my female companions get this huge party. Where's mine?
No. So this was not a party for women. This is like
If for both of
you
them.
have to parade your virginity in
Right.
your white
It's
dress
not-
among all these men who are going to pick you.
Right. It's not necessarily that like you get to
You
celebrate.
don't get celebrated. You get offered.
Right.
Ugh.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's
Okay,
kinda-
this is the same thing where you want to explain how you people
Because it's-
explain Easter?
Oh
You
my
want to
God.
explain?
Easter is one of my favorite traditions.
Have you heard this?
Yes, I have heard it.
And I can't explain Czech Easter.
Go. I want you to do it
It's
again.
a pagan holiday.
Go ahead.
It's a pagan holiday. It's
Which
a
is- let's see.
fertility thing.
Yeah.
And so on Easter Sunday, the men go and they chop down the willow branches that have just sprouted, and they weave these canes. And the women dye eggs, make them pretty, and they cook all kinds of foods. And then on Easter Monday, which is a holiday,
Yeah.
the men go around and they whip the women with their
Well, they knock on the
branches.
doors,
They
right?
knock on the door and ask for stuffs and whip the women with the branches.
Well, they chase them around the house inside.
Well, of course, you don't want to be whipped, so you have to run away a little bit.
So these strangers, well, they kind of know each other because it's a small
hold
town.
on, let me finish.
You're skipping a lot of very important things
no, I'm
to
going
me.
to get to it later.
Okay.
And then the women offer these eggs and goods
Okay.
in exchange.
Mhm.
So that's the idea. That's
Yeah.
like the guy is going to transfer the juices from the freshly sprouted willow
Uh-huh.
into you so that you
Through the
don't
butt.
get old, and you give him eggs as like a fertility kind of exchange. Right? Like
Yeah.
the cane is the penis, the eggs are the eggs. And
Sure, I didn't put that together, but
right,
yeah.
but what usually happens is that like getting whooped with the freaking cane
Yeah.
is painful, so there is a lot of alcohol involved in this. And then what ends up happening is that a bunch of people knock on your door, beat the shit out of you, take all your eggs, drink all your booze, and then they go to the next house. And then at the end there is a party with
Okay.
everyone.
Yeah.
But
But
this is
this is
small-
playful, right? When they
It's
say
playful, everybody loves it. You
Okay.
don't have to open the door. But on the other hand, if you like live in a small village, it's sort of like what Natalie was saying, like religion connects everybody and everyone participates in that.
yeah.
Easter is something like this, right? You participate in that, and if
Uh-huh.
you don't participate in it, there's going to be like this shame and ostracizing and all this like pushing you
Yeah.
to the side because like
Here's Susan
What's
didn't open
wrong
up her
with you?
door. Man, what the fuck's with Susan?
yeah, I know something like that, and it's
Yeah.
just like, well, did she not make eggs? Like, what?
Yeah.
You
She
know?
not offer. Yeah. And it's not just like she's not offering her fertility, but it's just like she's not participating in this thing that we do.
Yeah.
And which brings me, as you said something that triggered a thought in my mind is like, tradition is a kind of religion.
Of course.
Like not like, religion has traditions in it, but I feel like they might be more entwined than, like, you can, to me, like, it seems like they're, so like you have religion and like, in a religion you practice traditions, and then if you don't have a religion you can practice traditions, but that doesn't mean you don't have a religion.
I think you're conflating like a ritual and religion. They're connected, right?
Okay, a ritual
Religions have
versus
rituals.
tradition.
Mm-hmm.
Are rituals traditional or tradition?
I mean,
I
think
said religion. You're conflating ritual and religion.
I'm conflating.
Because
Well, I'm
I
saying
think
I
that-
think there's a tie between the two in our minds, at
well,
least.
of course. Well, I think
Uh-huh.
what's happening is that we are people who find kind of like peace in ritual, right?
Mhm.
Like
Yeah.
when you are a little kid,
Yeah.
there's these 3 things we do every night before you go to bed, and if we don't do them, you're not going to fall asleep.
What 3 things do you do?
I don't know, you bathe, read a book, and brush your teeth, something like that. Right?
Yeah.
And you do it in this order every night, and then you can sleep. And if you don't do it, if you're a very small child, you're not going to fall asleep. So
Hmm.
these, like, I think that Easter and Christmas, and
Yeah.
we do this on whatever holidays you have, 4th of July. Like, these are our points of, like, connecting with, we are humans, and this is what we do.
Hmm.
Like, don't do anything funky. Like, you're part of us.
Yeah. There's a thing you said about ritual bringing peace, you said, right?
Yeah.
I think that's a very like macroscopic thing too. And I think it can also go down to a very microscopic, like very individual thing. Like I remember I was at a funeral for a family member once, and it was like a very traditional Catholic funeral. Like we before like we went to the gravesite where like they lower and then we like throw the dirt on the thing.
Mhm.
We went to a church, and like at the church, like we had, you know, the memoriam kind of thing, and they showed photos, people gave eulogies. But there was also a thing that we did where we did a rosary,
Mhm.
Yeah,
and we did the same prayer, like
7, like it's a week. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
It's
we did it like a bunch of times, and I didn't know the
after
prayer.
you bury them, you have to do it for like a week and a half or something, like 10 days, I think.
Well, not that.
Really?
It was a thing we did beforehand.
You
I
just
think.
like count the rosary, and for every bead you said the same prayer.
Yeah, we did a thing where we said the same. I think it was like Holy Mary, Mother of God, blah blah
Yeah,
something.
yeah.
We did that. We did it. It felt like 30 times.
Yeah,
I
because
think
you
it was
have
like-
to
Count
do
the
it
whole rosary.
right.
Yeah, And
but there's sections of it.
Yeah.
So you do certain sections every night or so.
Yeah, I'm sure it's a thing throughout a day or throughout weeks, but
Right.
in this time we did it back to back for like an hour.
Right.
Um,
yeah.
And I remember like I didn't know it by heart, and so I'm just sitting down, and everyone just has
Yeah.
their head down, and they're just doing a thing. And but I felt it. I was like, I think, because at the time I already had my belief on that. Like I think people should do this kind of thing more often, even if you don't believe in a Holy Mother Mary, Mother of God.
Mhm.
But like, I feel like the same way every culture comes up with their own version of bread. I feel like every culture kind of comes up with their own version of like meditation or like
Yeah.
some form of self-care. So it's like you have like the East, you know, with the, you know, like actual like meditation. And
Mhm.
then in the sort of Mexican tradition, I don't know where like a rosary comes from, probably Spain.
Yeah.
But like the idea of like you just sit down and you just like say the same thing 30 times,
yeah.
you know, alone, right? Like what are you going to be thinking about when you do that? Like hopefully the word, like a mantra, like when you say a mantra,
Right.
Yeah.
you it's like sleeping while you're awake, except you can feel the immediate benefits as you're doing it,
Right.
Yes.
right? And I feel like that's a super healthy thing for people to do. And it's like, oh, they do this at a funeral. Like
Yeah.
that's brilliant.
Yeah.
You know, like it gives everyone a time to pause. And I feel like that you could take that out of the religion of a church. Like if everyone said like the same, like, thank you for your presence, blah, blah, like, you know, if they change like Mother Mary of God
Mhm.
and they replaced it with other words, like it's still like, and here's where I'm going to ask you, is that ritual or is that tradition or is that religion?
That's a ritual.
It's a ritual.
Mhm.
So yeah, I think rituals are important.
I think rituals are super important.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. I think for a long time, and I think still people think that because if you're an atheist, you obviously don't have this very crucial part of what makes you a human, and that's ritual, right? But we all have our own personal
Oh.
rituals. We take showers certain way. We prepare meals certain way. Like
Uh-huh.
we have this. Everybody has this thing that it can be anything, but you
Yeah.
always do it the same way.
I feel like you hit on something that really sort of, because like I don't know what I am, right?
Mhm.
And I feel like that always is like, oh, so you're agnostic, and it's like, well, hold on. It's like I'm not gonna say like, well, I think there's something bigger out there, and it's like I'm not sure if there's like like I'm not sure if there's any consciousness, whatever about me personally.
Right.
But when it comes to you, man, what do you say about
Ritual.
oh, when you don't have religion, you're lacking a certain ritual.
Right.
And I remember as a kid, or not as a kid, like a year ago or 2 years ago, I was like, so I don't think I'm like super religious. I don't practice religion that much, you know. Like I go to church sometimes with my family if they want to go to church, and I go there and I feel great after I do it because it's a time to sit down and think. But I always felt like, but I think it's like, say whatever you want about religion, and like specifically like this religion, like I know it has some of like the weird, really bad, questionable stuff in there too. So it's
Mhm.
like, fine, right? Don't practice this religion. It's fine if you don't want to do that. But I feel like practicing nothing is worse.
But
Right.
And I
nobody
tried-
practices nothing.
But nobody
That's what I was trying to
practices-
say, right?
Nothing.
But the thing is that if you are a very closed-minded Catholic, let's say,
hmm
and then you look at me, I don't practice any of the shit that you do, right? I celebrate your holidays wrong, and and then
hmm
so then you can see that if I do something wrong, how that stems from this immorality of my non-religion
In their eyes.
in their eyes.
Uh-huh.
Because it's an easy and sort of rational conclusion, right?
Yeah.
But I do all the things that you do, I just do them differently. And I think a lot of people have this, you know, okay, I'm Catholic, but I totally disagree with the church.
Uh-huh.
I just believe in this God that is there, and I believe in everything that's in the Bible.
hmm
But the church, the institution of the church
Yeah.
bothers me. And there are a lot of people like that.
Yeah.
But then in the view of the church, they are heretics. They should not go to heaven when they die because they didn't do the tradition. They didn't do the ritual.
hmm
Like Natalie's not a woman because she didn't go to quinceanera.
Okay, I don't think that's
I
what.
mean-
It's a celebration. It's not saying you didn't do it.
Right.
No, I'm joking, but
Yes.
that's, you know, that's like, okay, but I did
Yeah.
I did.
Like if you
I
don't
did
get
C through
baptized.
Z, and I didn't do AB. Like, what?
Yeah.
Why does that make me a bad person? And I
I
think
mean,
yeah.
that's kind of what we were talking about last time, no? Because you were talking about, or I was saying how, like, I don't believe or I don't follow Christianity or Catholicism because I don't feel it. And you
Yeah.
were saying how, like, you were watching a movie about, what was it, The Revenant?
Oh,
Revelation?
it was
How
a
the
movie about
priest-
Revelation. Yeah,
Right.
and there's a priest in there that was like, it's like I didn't like I said the words and I taught, I
didn't mean
preached the
it.
things, but like I didn't feel it, man. Like I
Right.
didn't believe it. And so like the priest was still there after the
Right.
Revelation.
And so, to
thing.
that extent, it's like, does that necessarily make me an inherently bad person because I choose to not follow it? But the
Mhm.
reason why I choose not to is because I don't want to, like, falsely believe in something.
Yeah.
so. I sometimes go to church and
Uh-huh.
I don't participate in the church stuff. So sometimes people like get up and say things, and I
Yeah.
stay sitting.
yeah.
And my
yeah.
friend told me that was like completely ignorant and I should never do it. And I was like, no,
Wait,
I will
never not do it? Tell you they were telling you to
She's
go
like,
up and
why
do the thing?
don't you get up and
Why don't
say
you
the
follow
words?
along?
And I'm like, this is not my thing. I'm here to support you as
Yeah.
a religious person, and I'm
Right.
here to admire this ritual. I'm here to observe. I'm here
Yeah.
to, like,
Like I don't want to appropriate
I'm
this.
here
Yeah, because
Yeah.
because it feels right to be here, but it does not feel right to participate. Like when I went to a mosque, the imam
Interesting.
told me, like,
Yeah.
you can participate.
Uh-huh.
And I said, I don't understand any of what you're doing. He's like, I can explain it to you. And I said, that would be great, but can I first observe? And because
Uh-huh.
that was my assignment, was to observe and then find out what it was all about, right?
Oh, okay.
And then I said, I don't want to be disrespectful. And he said, you come to our place
Mhm.
and you don't disrupt our ritual. That's respectful. You
Right.
don't understand. That's why you don't want to do it. That is respect.
Mhm.
So he was agreeing
He was
with you.
me. He's like,
Uh-huh.
you sit. I said, which section is my section? And he's like, well, if you were praying, you would have to be up there,
Uh-huh.
but you're not, so you can be anywhere.
Okay.
Mhm.
So it's like I felt like that was like reaffirming what I was already thinking.
Mhm.
But what is interesting is like that I got this like from the Catholic Church, was like, no, you must participate when you want to be in my house. And he was like, no, you're in my house, be my guest.
I feel
Yeah,
like maybe that
to an
that,
extent, because, yeah, I
that might be
do
personal
see-
to the person that said that to you.
Yeah, of
Right.
course.
Right.
I mean, because at least with my family, it's like a lot of the times I do follow along just because I know on the one hand, it's like I don't necessarily want to, but on the other hand, they're going to end up giving my mom shit if they're
Right.
like, your daughter's acting so and so. And I'm like, well, I don't want to. And then, and
What?
yeah, so like a really big thing is like some of my aunts have been really shitty in the way that they've treated my mom.
Mm.
And I don't want to interact with them, but I have to because
Right.
they're my aunts.
Yeah.
And if you don't, you're gonna be seen as a disrespectful woman, and they're gonna shame you for it.
You're
you
gonna make
cannot
you-
have an opinion.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. So in that circumstance, I do end up following along. But you were saying about the church, like my grandma, she's always been involved in like every single event that we had, quinceañeras, weddings, etc., etc. Every time she goes, she doesn't necessarily like observe, but she does participate in the sense of like she learned. I think early on she asked like, what should I do? I'm not like part of this religion.
Right.
And so what she ends up doing is she kind of like follows along. She doesn't really say like the words, most of the times it's in Spanish, but like there's this one part where you have to go up to get like the bread
Mhm.
and the wine and you get blessed or
Uh-huh.
whatever, and she just like crosses her hands because that's traditional. If you're not part of the religion, that's what you do.
Mhm.
You put your hands over it and you're like, and
And
they
you bow or something.
right, they
You
bless
still
you
have
and
to
you
go
can
though.
not
Well, I was gonna-
necessarily.
I have a personal experience. I've done both. At first, like you have to do your first communion to receive the bread and the wine.
Right.
And like I haven't done that, and so when I'd go with like my grandma and my dad, like on Sundays, it was like go up there and like put your hands across your chest and
Right.
bow, and then they'll be like, oh okay, and then like you walk on.
Yeah.
But then what I've been doing, what me and my brother have been doing recently, because we still haven't done our first communion, is we just stay sitting down.
yeah,
Yeah.
you can still sit. They don't really
I think
care.
that's what I do. I stay
Mhm.
sitting down and I wait. I don't leave the church. I wait for everybody that is
Yeah.
like important to me to have done their thing, and then we leave together.
Mm-hmm.
because I don't like, I've always been going to churches. That's the thing. Like, I don't think church is a strange place, because
No.
I studied art history, and you have to go to see the damn
Yeah.
church.
I think people who judge others for not doing something wrong or right are the kind of people who kind of just follow blindly and don't
I
really
think a lot
make.
of people who grew up in a strictly religious environment,
They follow
don't
it.
understand what they are doing, because
Right.
that's just what they do, right?
Yeah, versus like I think because the whole thing, usually when you're a kid, you just kind of sit in the pews and wait till all the parents go around, because you don't really do anything
Yeah.
because you haven't had your first communion. But in the case of my grandma, I think she asked them like, what exactly should I do, so I'm
Right.
not like disrespectful. And like I think if you're ever feeling nervous, doing what you did is perfect, because you just like, what is it fine if I just kind of like stay like observe so that I'm not doing anything inherently disrespectful.
Yeah, like you
right.
don't want to shit in people's
Oh,
houses.
Right,
so you
right.
know, okay.
Exactly.
I want to ask you this. You know how I'm assuming this is a Catholic church.
Yeah,
So you know how you have to get on your knees sometimes.
yeah, I don't.
You stay sitting.
I stay sitting too.
I feel weird about that.
You know what? Because
like-
going on your knees has a meaning, right?
Right.
Within the religion.
Right.
And to me, it
Mhm.
just means it's gonna hurt my damn knees.
They have the
Yeah.
little things that don't
No,
come out.
that shit still hurts. No,
Alex, that's the thing. Like, so one time I
Uh-huh.
went with my friend to a Baptist church, which was not the church that I know. I know these beautiful, giant, like, churches with
Mega
like
churches?
cathedrals.
no, they're cathedrals, like
Oh,
from Europe, like
cathedral.
really nice,
Yeah.
you know, stone
Mhm.
buildings. When I was in the Netherlands, there was this International Baptist Church, multi-denominational, whatever.
Right.
Everybody's welcome, but all the sermons are going to be in English, because this is for the international community. And my friend brought me there, and then like Baptists touch each other a lot. Like they shake hands, and like you have to turn around and do something with
Oh,
your.
yeah.
Oh, I'm just here because she asked me to come. No, don't, no touchy. And then they like try to save your soul.
Oh, God.
Right, it's just like they try to talk you into coming again,
Yeah.
and it's just to me it was really uncomfortable, because I
Right.
came there and I was very open about why I was there.
Mhm.
I talked to the preacher. I don't think they're called preachers, but I'm not sure.
Priest,
Uh-huh.
preacher. I don't even know.
Person who talked and played guitar.
There you
And,
go.
yeah, he had really good things to say, and then like
Mhm.
some of it was this God things that I don't necessarily like need to,
Yeah.
like, you know, Joseph and this, and it's like, okay, I don't know your family tree. But then like the message was like, this is a time when we need to support each other. This is a
Right.
time we need to like
Mhm.
do these things. And I sat
Right.
there and I felt like, yes, I actually kind of needed to hear that right now.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I'm happy I came. And then when he was done talking good, people around me started talking shit, right? Which is like, yeah, okay, so, but you have to accept Jesus.
Yeah,
The
that's
people
where
around you?
Yeah, like,
Like in the rows next to
the
you.
sheep.
That's where
Okay.
it loses me.
The shepherd.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I never feel too bad whenever, like when those people approach me, like, you know, on campus when they're like, hey, like, you know, like
Have
we're
you
doing a
heard about
religion,
Jesus?
right? Like I
I'm
never,
doing a study in a theology, independent
Mm-hmm.
study for a theology. Do you know how many times they stop me, and every time I'm like, okay, fine, fuck. And it's like,
You know, it doesn't bother me when people approach me in the street, because I don't feel so vulnerable as I did in the church.
where you're
Because
surrounded.
I feel like I am in your house. I
Yeah.
explicitly told you I will not participate, and you're still trying, and I feel like you have authority.
Well, here's
the
what here's
street
what
bothers me.
I was gonna say.
Oh, because on the street you can just tell them to fuck off, and they have to.
But then I feel bad.
Oh yeah, I don't.
What I was gonna say is I don't feel bad. I don't feel like it's them personally, and that's not to say that they're like a sheep, but it's like
It's
In
because
their-
that's what they're told to do.
not even that necessarily. It's in the eyes. I don't know where I heard it from, but it's like if there's it's hard. It's weird to explain. I was in a church one time, and I think the preacher was, you know, assumed everyone in the audience was religious, as you know,
Mhm.
is fine, obviously. And they were like, they're like you know, like I think it was more traditional, and it's like, you know, like we're all here to be saved, and like some of us may not like truly believe it, and we really need to open up our hearts to Jesus, and we, you know, do this and that. And it's like yes, cool, like that's what. And it's like for them, like the preacher, like they get off stage and, you know, we'll talk and stuff, and, you know, like it was a very small church, and they're obviously like they don't hate anybody, right? Like this is obviously like one of those good guys, right?
Yeah.
And he believes that in this religion, like it's not that you have to do these things, but it's like if you just hear the word of Jesus, if you believe that he exists, and like that's it, because Christianity's very more loose than Catholicism, and it's like.
But I feel like this is an invasive species, right? Because when you go to a mosque, nobody's going to tell you that you have to follow Islam.
Right.
If you go to a Hindu temple, they're going to feed you and they're going to love you, and they're not going to tell you shit about religion.
That's what I mean. Like that's where I was telling you, that's where I get lost. It's like I think in Christianity one of the things is like all you like one of the I forget which like
Like I have
branch
never
it is.
seen a Hindu mission anywhere.
Right, but like they have this idea that like they're trying to save as many people as possible.
That's what I was gonna say, is that they want to go out there, and it's like they don't believe that you're bad right now, or some of them do, but the ones that I'm talking about are the ones that are like oh, like you just, when I say ignorant it sounds like an insult, but it's like you just like you don't know, like you the Spirit of the Lord hasn't touched you haven't had the
That's
right
what I
person
don't
to
like,
tell you.
though.
So, like, would you mind coming to this thing super relaxed? You don't have to if you don't want to, but, like, if you do, we want to come to a Bible study, we're going to have a thing. You can totally not come. It's in public.
No, we can't have that. I think that the power of religion that is confident is that it just exists and people will come to it.
You say competent?
Confident.
Confident.
I feel like if you know...
Like, I am a religion and I am good.
Right, if
This
you
is
know
what I
that...
do, this is what I stand for.
Yeah.
You're welcome here.
If you know for a fact that you're eventually... Those people are eventually going to find the light of Jesus or God, then you don't need to inherently go out to people like... Look,
well, they might not find the light of God, and maybe you're going to be, you know, the shepherd for them that leads them to God.
Yeah, but the thing is that why would I need to be a fucking shepherd?
Right.
Why this creates this weird power imbalance
Right.
of like, I have authority to save you, little schmuck who doesn't know how to save
it's
yourself.
not them saving. It's they need to spread the word.
But that's where it loses me.
But spreading the word and spreading the word are two different things.
Right.
Right? Because
I think...
Because look, come to our Hindu temple. We have this feast today, and we're going to be performing this traditional dance.
Okay.
Is one thing to spread the word, right?
Right.
Well, I mean,
Come to
what are they
church
spreading?
because otherwise you're going to burn in eternal flames, and
See,
you
no one
really
says
need
that.
to.
No one says that.
They a lot of the times, often the people that I do see on the street, they're almost
The
like
people on the
desperate
street.
to get you in, and I'm like, yo, no,
Yeah.
no.
Like, yeah.
Crazy lady
If
at the
you know,
corner.
like,
Yeah.
if you know
She
for
just
a
stands
fact
there
that
and screams
Jesus
at you
is
that
gonna-
Jesus loves you.
right, if
Okay,
you know
that's
that
one-
Jesus is gonna save these people, you don't need to necessarily do that work.
Well, they're the free will. We have free will, so we need to impact each other to believe in God.
No, we don't.
Hmm?
No,
We don't have free will.
We
Well,
don't have
and-
free will, and we don't have to impact each other to believe in anything.
Well, that's because you believe that we don't have free will, because you don't believe that we do, because you don't believe in Jesus.
Wait.
No, we don't have free will.
I like scientifically.
Like,
Are
We
you
just
they
saying?
don't have it.
But from what perspective?
Wait, hold on, pause. I think I remember something in like junior year. My teacher made us like ask ourselves whether or not free will exists and whether we actually have a choices in the thing that we make. And like part of it to an extent was like, do you really have free will if you're forcing yourself not to like murder people?
Right?
Or if you're telling yourself that it's not okay to do so and so. Because in that sense, you don't have free will. You're not capable of doing whatever instinctual thing.
Because you yourself are blocking it?
Yeah, you
Yeah.
internalize certain social rules,
Exactly.
and then you're acting accordingly. Like, you're wearing clothes. What the fuck are you doing, Alex?
Yeah.
I didn't feel
Right.
like putting on a bra
If
today,
you
but I
don't
did.
feel it, exactly. If you don't, but yet you're doing these things subconsciously because you've accepted that
This
You
is how
have
we
to.
live here together.
But
Right.
okay, but within those constraints, I have much wiggle room to wear this hat or to not wear this hat.
Yeah, that's a false choice
Right.
How?
because you do wear clothes.
Okay.
This is just an item that you can choose. Like you have X
That's my
options
choice. That's
of
my
items,
freedom
but
of
you
will.
must put on an item.
Right.
I don't have to put on this item. I can choose to put this on
No,
right
no,
now.
no. I'm talking about like not.
But
You
free
can't walk
will is
out of
not
the house.
Selective. Free will has to apply to everything
Exactly.
equally.
So, like a slave doesn't have free will? Are we
You
talking?
don't have a free will either.
Why?
Because
Okay, so let's just go to
Just
this
go.
to this example that will illuminate minds across the board.
Go ahead. I'm open.
How do you plan on surviving until you die?
Eat food.
How are you going to get food?
Okay. Well, so one, I have options. I can make it myself, or I can buy it.
How are you going to make food?
I'll get the seeds for fruits and vegetables
Where are you going to grow them?
in a place.
Garden.
Where are you
I
going to get the garden?
In land that I buy.
You're going to have to participate in selling labor. You have no choice.
Unless you live in your own space.
Okay, I
You're
think
not-
I understand. You
But
guys are
having your
talking
own
about.
space comes with taxes.
Right. No,
So-
I'm talking about like an island. You bought
No,
it. you're-
different planet.
But even exactly, you're never ever gonna actually have free will.
I've never thought about free will in this context. Every time I've thought
mind blown.
Yeah.
I mean, it implies something deeper, but I feel like, but do you guys think about this?
Mhm.
Kinematics, which is like the study of how things physically move in a space, can determine where something's going to land before it lands there,
Mhm.
right? You can do that on a microscopic level. We can do that. If we can do kinematic equations for every single neuron and watt of electricity in our brain, I can tell you what you're going to do before you do it. Everything you're going to do. Everything you're going to think. Now, that is a deeper philosophical thing than like, but do you really have a choice? That is not even philosophical. It's scientific to say that you blinking just then, you didn't make that choice. You didn't make that choice because your eyes were dry and you felt like blinking.
But-
That was just the atoms connecting into themselves that bumped into each other in a way that made your neurons fire in a way that made you blink.
But we're talking about like we're not talking about things that like you have to do to exist. We're talking about things in your head, like choices that you make. You don't have the liberty to make any choice that you actually think of. Not things that like our brain does subconsciously that we're like have to like bodily functions. You don't have,
The blinking was an example. You're
talking about like mathematical equations where you can like project exactly where you're gonna step, etc., etc.
Except
right?
like the thought process that you had to go to choose the words that you were going to say just now,
Mhm.
I could have predicted with kinematic equations
Okay.
in your brain.
But I think that doesn't really tie in with the free will that we were talking
Right.
about before.
Right.
Different
So
form of free
that's
will.
that's the only context I've ever thought about free will in. It's like you know how they have like there's a theory that time is like a fourth dimensional shape that has always happened and everything has happened and everything that ever will happen has
Right,
already
right,
happened and we're just going through
Time
it
is
like
a social construct.
no,
No,
it's a
like,
very
we're like-
real thing, space time
Like
and
there's
the
3D
continuum
and then there's like 4D. You're talking about 4D, right? Where time is
is the like the fourth dimension
Right.
sort of thing and that we are like
that you're capable of like moving in between, but you're kind of
well
not.
the
You
thing
have
with
no
us that we also don't understand is like how like if that's true, what sort of like key do we have that only can make us move forward in time,
Right.
right? Like how come if everything exists all at once, right? So like in that context, it's like every sort of movement, if I move my hand, if I move closer and further away from the mic, has already, it's not that it's been predetermined, but that it's already happened and that I'm just a stick in a piece of, in a river of mud going along for the ride in the body that I do,
So you
because
have no
consciousness
choice.
is an illusion,
Right.
right? Like, not
And you think that you do have a choice in that.
well, here's the thing, when
Go
you
back to the Jesus thing, because now I've
I
lost
was
the
about
argument.
to. I was about to.
Yeah,
when your
because Alex
teachers
was
asked you guys, when the teacher asks you guys, like, do you guys have free will? I feel like if you believe in a religion specifically, like Christianity or Catholicism, that could throw all of that out the window. All of this scientific thing that I said, it can throw all that out the window, because, like, what if the universe was only created 6,000 years ago with everything, like, with the dinosaurs in the mud just put there, right? It is Archimedes' razor, Occam's razor, or whatever, that says, like, delete the most improbable thing, and the most probable thing is what probably happened. Like, the universe could have been created last Thursday, along with all of us and all of our memories, right?
Fun.
But you can erase that with, like, Archimedes' razor. I don't think it's Occam's razor. Sorry.
So what about Jesus? How does that play?
I don't
So
see
if
how
you
Jesus makes
if
it
you
different.
believe in God and that God created everything, and that you have free will because you have faith in the Bible that says that you have free will to make your choices, then you do, and all this science stuff doesn't matter, because God let you believe in science stuff as a test to see if you are going to be in heaven or in hell. Because last time God tried to make a bunch of angels, one of them rebelled and brought a bunch of people with them, and then there was a war between heaven and Satan and Lucifer, the angel's new squad, and they fought each other.
Wait,
and God
I'm
was like,
confused. So
I don't
God
want
gave
this.
us free will as a test,
To see if our
But
souls
no,
that he makes,
didn't give us free will. He controls everything.
right?
and that's another argument against God, is like, if he's all powerful and if he's omnipresent and
I'm
omnipotent.
lost again.
But
So-
are we trying to argue against God, or are we trying to convince you that you don't have a free will because of social construct?
Well, we
traits.
were talking about how there's some religions who are like kind of confident that they can. Their
That people
religion,
will
they
come.
don't right. Versus like
Yeah, I haven't heard about people of a religion saying those who are going to be saved have already been saved because everything has already happened. Is that what you're saying?
no, I'm confused about what you were saying. How that's
But
why
not-
people go out on the street, or like why they're in church.
It wasn't
Right.
fully related. When you guys, I also kind of wanted to relate to you guys
Mm-hmm.
how I thought about free will, but you guys are talking about
Well-
more of a societal sort
Yeah,
of free
right.
will.
Well, you cannot escape society.
And to me, that's
Therefore,
like fine.
you have no free will.
To me, that's not free will. Free will is everything I described
It
in, like,
is.
every moment
It's
that
anarchy.
I do.
still don't
That's
have
what
it.
it is.
I'm fine where I'm at. Like, I
But that doesn't.
But we didn't
necessarily
say
mean
that not
everything.
having free will is bad. We
Right.
just told you you don't have it.
oh, well, it's implied. Come on.
Is it?
It's
No.
implied.
No, I don't want to have free will. I do not want to have the
If you
responsibility.
don't have free will, then anybody can kill you.
What I mean,
In
like-
anarchy,
I
in the
don't-
state of anarchy, there's no social contract, meaning that like anything goes. There's no like society,
Uh-huh.
there's no government in place. You can do anything you want, but there's no rules. That's
I'm
the
okay
state
with
of
that
anarchy.
because I don't think that is ever going to.
Right.
That's not humanly possible.
That's the idea though behind the social contract. The reasons why we agree to
if
these
we
things
had free
is
will.
because like somebody's capable of like running you over with a truck and you can't do anything
Yeah,
about
Well,
it.
that's
okay.
okay because if we don't have any social contract, there's not going to be anybody capable of constructing a truck.
Exactly.
So
Like you mutually benefit from being in a social contract.
so are you guys comparing a sort of primal id sort of animal that we all are to a kind of social brain
But
that
we
we
are a
overlap,
social animal,
that we
so
filter?
We cannot separate those things.
So okay, so you guys are saying I don't have free will because I am constrained by my society to make choices that I otherwise wouldn't make.
You can have free will, but you
Uh-huh.
don't because we all understand that we. Do you know what the social contract is, right?
I mean, like I assume.
It's like this
Like, I'm
theory
not gonna
by like
punch
I
you
don't
in the
know who
face
is it,
if I
Rousseau,
disagree.
Thoreau, like John Locke. I forgot who wrote it.
John
like-
Locke, the inventor, of the microscope.
One of them.
One of them. So
Probably
anyway,
Thoreau.
it's the idea that like people agree to creating like a society or like a system that governs everybody in order to protect themselves from certain things, right?
Okay.
There's never been a society that has ever existed that's purely in the state of anarchy. Like if you even look at like tribes, like they have like a system, like
Okay. Yeah.
some
There's
form
always
of
a
government,
hierarchy.
right?
Uh-huh.
And so the reason why we accept to let go of our free will and accept citizenship for example, is because we benefit from that, and the government or that system also benefits from having people underneath them.
So again, there you said free will within your definition of it, kind of thing.
Right.
We don't like your definition of free will because it's complicated.
Right. No, I'm trying to understand. Ignore everything I said. I kind of just wanted to say that. But when it comes to your guys' free will, so let's say I want a small example, and I want you guys to tackle this small example, and that's it. Don't go beyond the bounds of it. So let's say I want to, let's say I'm on the bus, and then somebody says something like annoying. Let's say somebody says something I don't like, and I want to go up there and I want to punch them in the face and I want to fight them, right? But I'm not going to do that, right? Because like it'll be all these society rules.
Right.
Are you saying that I don't have free will because I told myself that I'm not going to fight them? Is that
No, I think
Both.
I think what I am saying is that if you do it or not doesn't matter, because you're always going to only do the things that are within the choices that have been predetermined.
Right.
the choices that have been predetermined by the society I live in?
Yes.
Right. By the
Okay.
the country you were born into.
Okay, so
So I think
What-
that we understand it a little bit differently because Natalie's kind of bringing in the laws as part of what our social contract
Yeah,
is.
it's like a saying political
I think I kind of go even outside of bounds of laws. I
Right.
think that you can choose to do something illegal,
Mhm.
and that is your right, right? You have the right to do illegal things and then be punished.
Right.
so I don't have free will because I'm going to get punished?
You
You
don't-
don't have free will because you must participate in this society. There is no other society for you to participate in.
You, like,
have
legitimately-
No choice.
So I don't
No matter where you go in the world.
Oh, okay. So is the lack of options, as in choices I can make, is that so not having a choice, is that not having free will?
Mhm.
Okay.
But
Okay.
Because there are people who are like, I want to live in the woods without society.
Yeah.
you can't.
And then they
because you're in-
separate themselves as much as possible from society. And then it becomes super obvious how many ties they still have. Like they do not have the choice to live outside of society.
Right.
What?
There's literally like no place in the world could you live unless like what international waters?
No.
Like literally, there's no place. Wait, actually, yeah,
Russian
because
forest.
There
well,
are
no,
rules
even
for
even
international
international
waters,
law,
too.
you'd be screwed over. So like, you don't have choice anywhere, unless. But like, even the whole concept of like creating a state of anarchy is like
Well,
inherent in and of itself. That like, there's no.
so there's no choice cuz I could like go in international waters and kill somebody and roll in my own thing. Like I can totally have like
But
a
you're
super
still
huge
confined
yacht.
to international law.
Only if they catch me? Right? Like if I go out there in a super big yacht and I throw my own anarchy party and we have a whole
But
thing.
then there's rules for how like you can't be in some person's water.
Well, that's only if the person comes out and fights me, right?
Yeah,
They
but
say,
then
"Get
you
outta
still
there."
have the there's still the potential for somebody to come after you.
But that's not free will. That's just a punishment.
Right. I mean, like Yana was saying, I'm still in the mind because the way
Yeah,
that political science works is that.
Laws. You
Right.
assume people.
But
operate under the
genuinely,
ideas
there's
of
no
law.
way to actually create. You can get close to it, but there's no pure form of anarchy.
I think what is also true
Mm-hmm.
is that even if you do remove yourself and you're completely isolated,
Mm-hmm.
you are still going to hold at least noticeable the
Mhm.
things that you grew up with, the
Yeah.
things that you internalized.
Right.
You know to wipe your ass, you're going to look for something to do it with. Right?
Mhm.
Like those
Right.
are things that you're not going to get rid of.
Right.
You're not
I
going
mean-
to become a different species. And even if you do, most species are herd animals.
So I want to go down that vein. So we don't have free because I feel like deep like on the very sort of like pillar of like what you guys are saying that there's this sort of like thing that we would be if we grew up in a world without a society. If we grew up like with nothing.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not a thing.
That happened one time in 1950. There's a girl named Jean. The dad didn't like him.
She was mentally ill.
Go ahead. I mean, you
She
seem
was
to know.
mentally ill.
That was it.
Mhm.
Well, the
I don't know
story
the
I
story.
heard, I
So
suppose,
Jeannie grew up outside of society,
Where?
somewhere in the
in a
woods,
house.
Mhm.
in the basement.
Mhm.
Just, I'll tell the story I heard, and then you
Okay.
tell me.
I
what-
don't remember the exact circumstances of her growing out of
So
growing
she
up
grew
out of
up
society.
outside of society.
This is what happened. The dad of the family hated the world, and so he boarded up all the windows. And when his wife gave birth to the baby, he put the baby in this room and he,
Mhm.
like, basically like tied her to a chair, and she had no interaction with language, with other humans, other than food and water to drink.
Mhm.
And somebody only found out about it like 15 years later,
Mhm.
and out comes this girl with like the mind of a 9-month-old or something like that.
Oh.
Like she like kind of learned how to walk on her own.
Mhm.
And so like but that's the thing, but apparently she was mentally ill.
I think she was mentally ill. I think that
Like,
Because
do you
what-
mean mentally disabled or mentally, because of course she would be, something would be of course
I
sick
think
with
she
her
had like
brain.
a cognitive.
Dysfunction of
Dysfunction.
some sort. Okay.
Yeah, and then we can argue of where they come from, right?
Right, like maybe she would have been fine if she had a thing.
I looked into that a
Uh-huh.
lot because one of the classes that I had to take mentioned Genie. Like, this is what happens when you grow up in a box. And
Mhm.
Mhm.
the teacher was like, well, what happened to her after she was discovered
Yeah.
was not exactly trying to help her catch up with the development. It was just to observe her. So basically, she
Oh.
was taken outside of the box and put into a slightly different box.
Yeah, I
What
see.
And so
happened?
they were just saying, well, she will never be able to catch up with any learning or anything, but you didn't provide any learning.
To even see.
It was just, you just looked at her, you gave her a ball and saw what she was going to do with it. You didn't
Yeah.
show her how to play with ball.
It's the
Yeah.
whole it's the storyteller that
And then
I
once
heard.
people wrote the articles and
Yeah.
they got published, they kind of like just put her into a mental asylum and that was it.
Jesus.
Like, so
It's-
there was a
so
lot
It's
of...
a horrible. I brought it up because it's an example of like what a human would be with no stimuli.
Well,
Right. So is it freedom of will
so
that is it that kind of
the
thing we would all be?
idea is that there's no way to achieve like pure.
to achieve
Right.
you without society. But
Right.
society
So, like-
also takes away your free will.
It's inherent. So
And
like these
I keep forgetting that
systems-
this isn't a bad thing.
Right. So these systems are always going to happen because people need
Yeah.
structure. That's how you develop
That's
from
why we
like
have rituals.
Neanderthals to like humans
Yeah.
now because they had to
So and
because they benefited from helping each other.
let's clarify this right now. You guys are telling me this, and I'm trying to understand. I want to let's have some stasis here.
hmm
This isn't a bad thing.
No.
Okay.
This
This
is a
feels
good thing.
because the context I was absorbing this conversation is one of those times where somebody's like, the government is fucking us,
No, no,
man.
no.
They're putting things in our phone and they're making us sheep. You don't have free will. Like
No.
that's what I
The
that's what
thing
I
is,
think
is,
anytime
like,
anyone
I
hears
think the
that.
argument is because if you do believe that you have free will, then you are more gullible by the government.
Yeah.
Because the government
do
can tell
have
you,
free
look,
will,
you
you
have
said?
this free will and you can choose from all these things. Free
Right.
will.
Uh-huh.
But you told me that those are the things. But
Right.
because you told me that I have free will and I understand it as you do as a good thing
It
to have
means-
free will,
It means that you're not
Hmm.
capable of changing that.
you're not capable of changing.
Yeah.
You're right. You're not capable of changing the whole system of people.
If the law says that like in like oppressive like regimes,
Mhm.
they have strict laws, and if you believe that you have free will within that country, that means that you can't like you can't escape that oppression.
Because you believe
because
that
you
you are
bel-
free.
Exactly.
Yeah, I guess this is very open.
Yeah, it's kind of
it's
mind
opening
blowing
me a
when
lot
you first hear it.
to. Well, that's just because I've never thought about free will in this
Yeah.
way.
So
like,
what were
in
you
this-
talking about Jesus? I'm confused still.
Because he thinks that if you believe in Jesus,
Uh-huh.
you believe that you have the free will to be either good or bad, and Jesus either will or will not save you.
Is that it?
I don't think Jesus
I think
makes the
that's what you were
choice to
saying.
save you or not. I think it's up
the
to
choice
you.
to be savable
So
or
you
not.
have the
You make the choice to make yourself savable or not. Yeah, I think that's
Right, but then at the same time, I think religion is
Mm-hmm.
a lot more complicated and complex because it also says that everybody has the potential to be savable, except for babies and dogs.
Yeah, that
that's why babies need to get baptized.
I think that the Pope changed that. Babies now go to heaven and not to limbo anymore.
Oh,
Yeah.
that was a thing. I forgot about that.
Can I completely derail this conversation,
Sure.
or do you guys want to have stuff to wrap up?
No.
Do you guys have
go
anything to
for it.
wrap
no, we
up?
good.
Everything gets derailed anyway.
Okay.
We're so good at this.
Yeah.
Speaking of trains.
I have this great theory. This is gonna take a much
Is
lighter.
it a theory or hypothesis?
Let's test it. Who's gonna kill me?
But is it going to be significant?
What's the P factor in this?
Oh god.
So, I haven't read the Bible. I've tried. I've like got through like a little bit of Genesis, and then
You've
it's
tried
like
and failed.
I've tried and failed.
Unsavable.
Well, okay. I have a little thing to wrap up, just a little bit. I went to both Christian and Catholic churches. Pretty much like every other Sunday, I'd go to one or the other.
Sweet.
And the Christian one is very more relaxed. Like I remember many times the thing that was put across to me is like, you don't have to do anything. 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 All you have to do one thing, is believe that Jesus exists and that he is the Son of God. That's it. You don't have to practice anything else. If you just believe that that is true, then you can go to heaven.
Why?
Because
Why?
If you but I don't like what separates people from going to like why is it that one specific thing that separates people from going to heaven and hell?
Because if you don't believe, then that means that that you might have some other purpose on earth.
Sure.
Is that what it is?
I don't know. What always is conveyed
Because
to
I think
me.
that Christianity is like a
Oh,
religion that started as a cult in Rome, somewhere in the basement, right?
Fuck.
And then Constantine was like,
What is it that
"Oh,
is
this
from-
is profitable. Let's make this the national religion." And then Rome and Vatican had
And
become.
then it like
the-
came corrupted.
Of
Eventually.
course, it was corrupted.
Yeah.
It was corrupted from the very beginning.
But then
But
so,
it was a way
We
of
could take a
the-
little offense
the-
to that.
yeah.
It was because
Little.
it was a way for the
Uh-huh.
monarch to maintain power. That's why it was corrupt. Not the religion itself and people who believed in it, but it was used as a tool for
Right.
maintaining monarchy.
The tool
Right.
definitely helped people, in many ways, but it was nonetheless the tool to power.
Yes,
Yeah.
but it's not how it started, right? It started as a cult in a basement where
Okay,
people came
you say
together.
I mean,
cult and-
technically,
and the cult is
you
not a
can-
bad thing here.
Right.
There we
again.
go.
it's
There we
just a
go.
little group of gathering
Yeah,
of
where it's like,
people.
hey, I believe this stuff. It's like-
Sometimes they become very dangerous. Sometimes
I
they don't.
found this Jesus here, and like this is what he says. Look, Bible.
It
Mhm.
sounds pretty sick.
Except for there's sometimes where there's
What?
evidence that, like,
It exists.
like
But see,
Palpatine did
that's-
execute a guy named Jesus.
I'm
and
not
it's
saying
like,
that
whoa.
he
So the thing is
historically
that-
didn't exist.
Dude, you know
Uh-huh.
the Brother Grimm stories?
No.
Yeah.
I wanna-
So there's
yeah.
a whole bunch of books
I
that
love
are just
those.
like the stories of the brothers.
Grimm
The
brothers.
Grimm Brothers storybook, right?
love
And then
those.
all the same stories are in all those books.
Uh-huh.
That's what Bible is, a collection of stories.
Yeah.
And they may or may
Hologram
not be
books, yeah.
true, right?
Yeah.
And then also like before we wrote things down because we were forgetful, we would be like, "Hey Natalie, dude, did you hear about his Jesus thing?"
Yeah.
I heard that from Alex, but I don't remember exactly what he said. But this
I
is
got
how
a
it went.
bit. I got a little bit of it. Let me.
Yeah, and then let me throw it back
Right.
at
Yeah.
somebody else, and that's why
Telephone
that's
game.
why there was a person who got executed whose
Right,
name was
I-
Jesus. There was a guy who stood on the mountain and said good things. There was a guy who thought that they saw a Holy
Mhm.
Spirit. They all came together in this collection of stories
Mhm.
that have some grain of truth in it, but the most important thing about them is that they have a moral message.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Right?
But
It's
I
the,
know-
It's the Dora the Explorer. We have to work together.
See,
to
that's
do
why
this thing.
I've
Mhm.
never been able to like prescribe myself to one religion because then I
Yeah.
always have fucking questions. Like, why can't I go to heaven if I don't? Like, it just doesn't make sense to me that there's this one thing,
Mhm.
and if you do not agree with that one thing, you're not gonna get there. And it's like, well, what the fuck? I'm not saying he didn't exist, because he probably did, but like, what difference does it make? Like, it doesn't make me an inherently sinful person.
And then here's
are a witch.
here's what I
Fuck.
love. I'm gonna say this, and then I want to derail the conversation. I want to say this, and then I'm gonna derail. This is gonna be like the stop before we get to Derail Town.
We're going to drown in a lake.
So, one thing is that I feel like a lot of us sort of understand like the idea behind Christianity as like kind of like the New Testament God, but like sometimes like Old Testament God, which is like, hey, I'm gonna burn down this entire city. You and your family escape. If anyone turns you around, I'm gonna turn you to salt. And then like the family escapes, and the wife turns back, and God just turns him to salt. And then the dude is like, dude, why'd you turn my wife to salt? And he's like, turn around, bro. Did I fucking stutter? Like,
But
Old
that's
Testament
like-
God is hardcore, and all Old Testament God wants is like, believe in my son. It's like, why not? Or else I'll fucking kill you. That's why. And like, that's it.
That's what?
Like,
That's like,
it doesn't make any sense, but like sometimes.
honestly, that is a little bit cultish, like cult leadership.
Dude, Old Testament.
That's how they started. Just
Drink,
like that.
don't drink the Kool-Aid.
Fucking
Don't
core.
drink the Kool-Aid.
Okay, Derail Town. You guys ready?
We're so ready.
I have this theory because like we have to wrap up soon.
Hypothesis or theory?
I don't know these terms, Yana.
Hypothesis
Can be tested.
can be tested
This
and
can-
then become a theory.
Yes,
Well, we'll test it once we die.
both people who are from social sciences and not STEM.
We know. And
Dude.
you, a
Exactly.
scientist,
STEM
you
major.
don't know.
That's my theory, like gravity. Gravity's a theory.
I
No.
think
Derail
gravity is a
Town. We're
theory.
at Derail Town.
All right,
Alex.
next stop, choo choo. Here we come. So, I haven't read the Bible, but I feel like I kind of get the gist of it. And
Perfect
this
Spark
is
Notes.
and this is the this is I don't know if what I'm about to say is like what is like actually like the
True.
lore in the
Yeah,
Bible,
go for
or
it.
if like how much of it I'm making up and that I don't know that I'm just
We
pulling.
just told you it was oral
So-
tradition.
This is me just making up a story that
Fine.
might be in accordance with other stories where it's like, okay, so once upon a time there was everything, right? And then everything had no bounds, and then everything since everything was everything and everything could have possibly ever happened, because in a sort of everything state there was time, and if there's time, then that means there's a time where all things could have happened within that time.
Yeah.
And one of those times that things happened within every kind of time, there was a time where everything got together and pulled itself into one thing, and it was like, I'm God now, right? And this God was like, all right, so I've given myself boundaries, so now I'm like a thing, right? Like I'm a God. And so if I'm a God and I can do everything because I'm everything, I'm gonna make a universe, right? So here's my universe. I'm kind of bored. Since I'm everything, I'm just gonna make some people, right?
Talking about Adam and Eve.
Well, no. Before even there was planets or sun or atoms or anything,
Uh-huh.
God's just like, I'm just gonna make some people. And so he makes angels, right?
Mhm.
And it's like, nice. Some people, I gave them like some like free will, because like if they're part of me, then like that's boring. I'm talking to myself here. So because I'm bored, I'm just gonna make like some people, give them free will. I'm gonna cut them off from me, so that way it's like playing with a dog. Like I don't know what the dog is thinking, right? And so like I have like these angels, and these angels are fucking around, and then but he's like, one thing though, like since you are part of me because I made you and I'm everything and you're everything and everything is me, don't like. Like remember I'm number one. Just like remember that, okay? Like I am more powerful than you. Like but hey, we're all chill though. But just don't forget that. And then Lucifer was one of the people he made, and then Lucifer's like, nah, I want to be number one, right? And so then he's like, and then Lucifer gets a cult of people, and God's just pumping out these fucking angels because he can do everything, and he's just making these angels, right?
Quick question:
Uh-huh.
Is it wrong that I don't inherently disagree with Lucifer?
No, it's not.
Well,
But see, that's
here's the
what
thing.
I'm saying,
Okay.
and then it is technically wrong.
Well, here's the thing. Satanism isn't necessarily about fuck yeah, Satan, fuck people, kill people, right? It's if like people like, or at least the ones who aren't like that. It's about kind of free will, and it's about like,
No, it's about looking at God objectively.
yeah,
And saying you made
Satanism.
Maybe I'm a
mistakes
Satanist.
and you made mistakes and you're not going to acknowledge that you made mistakes. You're just going to cover it up with some violence. Fuck that.
Yeah.
No, we want a just
Are you talking about
system.
Satanism?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I mean, I just heard a friend tell it to me one time. So Lucifer's in there with, he's just pounding down, and he starts to make a cult, and he's like, hey, guys, I want to overthrow this man. I want to overthrow this boy, right? But, like, God's still God, right? He's still the main, he's server number one of everything, right? Yeah. And so Satan's like, so there's probably, like, millions of angels, right? Probably billions, whatever. God's just pumping them out. There's no, like, space for things to not be room in, right? And so eventually Satan's like, all right, here's D-Day, like, fucking attack. And then the angels just, like, I don't know, make weapons, and, like, now they're fighting each other, right? And so, like, they're fighting each other, and then God's like, what the fuck is this? And he just, like, yeets, like, Satan or Lucifer and all of his, like, homeboys, like, to a different place, right? In different place, this is super abstract because there's not even space. There's just, like, an everything field.
Yes.
So
everything
he puts
in somewhere else.
Everything, and then but somewhere else. And so everything everywhere, but not here. And so he puts them over there, and he's like, what the fuck was that? I mean, I still want to keep pumping new people because, like, I'll understand this person, like, I get them now, but, like, that's cool, but I don't want to, like, stop making them exist because, like, that'd be mean. So, like, I'm just going to keep pumping out people. But I want to keep pumping out people, but I don't want that to happen again. So I'm going to make a universe. Yeet, yeet, yeet. And he makes, like, some planets, right? He makes a solar system. He makes, like, laws of gravity. He makes Planck's constant.
Planck.
And he, and so he does all this stuff. And then he's like, all right, so here's some animals. I'm going to make them like this. And in my image, it's sort of like I'm going to give them, like, I'm going to make them one of my souls. Because, like, they're part of me, right? So these things aren't just animals that are made of photons. They're going to have a Holy Spirit, right? And the Holy Spirit is the part of all of us that is connected because we are part of God, right? So that's the Holy Spirit, right? And so he makes these, he makes Adam and Eve, and then he makes more people somehow because, like,
God.
Either Adam and Eve did some incest shit with their babies, or God just pumped out some humans out of nowhere.
So that was an interesting part of the story. It was like, yeah, Adam and Eve, they're in the Garden of Eden, and they're not supposed to eat this apple because otherwise they're going to find out that they are naked, right? And then they eat the apple, they find out they are naked, and then God casts them away from Eden.
Yeah.
And puts a mark on them so other people would not interact with them. The fuck? They were the only people on Earth.
Yeah. So God's pumping out this thing, and so the whole point of life on Earth is to test us to see if we're okay to chill with God or not, right? If you're a bad guy, if you do some Hitler shit, it's like, man, that was basically Lucifer 2.0. Or maybe, like, Lucifer 2. Like, I don't want that guy. That guy obviously is going to go to hell with Satan in his club.
Then here's the thing. Because Hitler's obviously an inherently evil person. If I even simultaneously agree with what Lucifer thought of, does that put me in the same category as Hitler?
The judging...
Lucifer didn't try to do genocide. Lucifer just said, what makes you... God, exactly.
Right.
Why are you better than me?
Right.
And also, you did this and I don't agree.
Why
and
is
there's
that?
no way for me to contest that in a court because you are God.
Right.
Yeah.
Why does that make you an evil person, but not a heaven worthy person?
I don't think that how God sort
because
of
heaven
tallies.
Is an elite exclusive club.
Well, it's like the thing with Mormons where they only think like 4,000 people, like there's enough room for like 4,000 people in heaven or something. I don't know if that's Mormon.
I don't even want to be talking about these sects.
Man, we really got to wrap up real quick. But and so like the whole point of life on Earth is like to test us, and how he grades like Hitler was just like an obvious example, right? Like what is God's rubric? Nobody knows.
If he has a rubric, I'd like to know.
Right, but then if you did know, you would just game the system.
Yeah.
And that's he doesn't want that.
This is just being a good teacher.
Well, then I can just do what I need to. Like
he wants to know if you inherently the soul that he pumped out, right, that he made you. He wants to know if all the things and all the moral compasses that he made in that version are gonna work out for him.
And if I don't work for him, what happens to me?
I think you guys are asking yourselves the wrong questions. Why don't we go back to believing that there is a Gaia, which is the power of Earth, and we are all part of it.
That's
and when
so
we die,
beautiful.
that
we
goes back.
See
Transcendentalism.
I want that.
Okay,
You can have it. It
I
exists.
somebody told me about a thing called transcendentalism or something.
Transcend-
I'm about to transcend.
Transcendentalism, and it
Yeah.
basically it lines up with pretty much everything I believe, and I can't wait to read about it. And I didn't want to talk about it on this podcast, even
We
though
can
it
talk
totally
about it
lines up.
Next time.
Next time on Well, What Do You Know?
Transsensualism.
The train has gone off the rails and onto a cliff, and it is now drowning in a river, and I have to leave in
For
negative
work.
3 minutes. Thank you everybody for listening.
At least it wasn't 3 hours long. So that's the.
I mean, we got in here at like 11.
I mean, the time recording isn't 3 hours long.
How?
An
Oh, I
hour
guess
and
it
44. That's a solid time.
I think we did well.
was
Yeah.
pretty good. That's pretty good.
High five.
We stayed on one topic stricter
Yeah, that's good.
this time. You haven't heard episode 2, but you should. It was,
I will.
It
But
was,
if it's 3 hours, I can't promise.
it's like 2 and a 10. It's
If
like
you
2 and
get
a
to the
10.
end, you might get a special gift.
Is it going to be heaven?
Who knows? I mean, I personally think it is.
Well, hey, it's from
It's
you, and that's all that
subjective.
matters. Or is it free will? All right, everybody, thank you for listening.
Adios.
Signing off.